Blissful ignorance. Do you know people who are blissfully ignorant? It's like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't care to know. I'm just going to continue on with what I think is true. I'm not going to look at anything else. I think this is a very, very big problem, because this pretty much means that these people, you could call them NPCs essentially. These are people who do not think for themselves, who just believe whatever that they're told that is for the mainstream narrative. They don't have any sort of critical thinking whatsoever. And when presented with any sort of evidence that contradicts their belief, they refuse to look at it, they don't acknowledge it, they don't believe it, and they don't want to know about it. Okay? So it's very, 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 very frustrating dealing with these types of people, because these people are essentially just, they live in their own world, and it's a fantasy world. It's not a world that is of this reality, essentially. It's really far out there. So some examples of this. Let's say being blissfully ignorant is, let's say you have a certain belief, like let's say that let's just use the example of like smoking. That is like probably the most, common type of example we could use, simplistic one. So most of us probably know that smoking is not good for us. Well, many, many, many years ago, there wasn't all this major concern, obviously. But let's say someone who's smoking and everything, they don't think that there's anything wrong with smoking, that they don't think that it's going to have any sort of health issues, that it's not going to contribute to lung cancer or cause any sort of other health issues whatsoever, that they think it's perfectly safe and fine, because way back in the day, if you remember, that is what doctors recommended. Doctors recommended, when we're talking way before I was born, doctors recommended smoking, because there was no health issues, okay? So let's just say someone listens to their doctor and the doctor recommends smoking or whatever, So, person smoking. And other people are trying to tell them, hey, smoking is very bad for you. It's like, oh, yeah, whatever. It's like, okay, look, here's your scientific evidence. Here's your peer-reviewed clinical trials that show that the vast majority of people who smoked for, long periods of time had some sort of major health issue, whether it be lung-related or, other issues. And it's like, you present that article to them, you present that information to them, and they don't bother to look at it. They don't want to look at it. They just kind of turn a blind eye. It's like, I'll just pretend like I never saw that it didn't even exist. I personally, I don't understand that at all. To me, that literally makes no sense why someone wouldn't want to listen to it, because I am someone who's a critical thinker. If I have a certain belief and you challenge my belief, I want the evidence to back up your claims so I can look at it. It's like, okay, let's say vaccine stuff, whatever. If I have a certain belief about, the Fauci ouchie, and then you have a different belief, and I've encountered this on my own videos as well. I've talked about these sort of things. It's like, oh, you were wrong about this. You're wrong about this. And I say, can you please provide me the evidence that backs up your claim so I can look at it? They are silent because they have no evidence to actually back up. And I'm just like, and that's the other thing when it comes to blissfully ignorant people. They only look at information that is for their agenda, but they only do it by like word of mouth. So maybe that they hear on the news media that, hey, safe and effective, get your, Fauci ouchie. Or maybe they hear from their doctor, you should definitely get your Fauci ouchie now, But they won't look at the actual scientific data that showed, okay, so how is this thing approved? How did they come to the, efficiency of the Fauci ouchie? All this other stuff. They won't even look at things for their own side. It's like they just want to believe whatever is the easiest thing to believe. And again, it doesn't make any sense to me, because I am a critical thinker. I'm always questioning things. I'm always thinking, a whole bunch of different things, and just critically thinking. Okay? For someone who's not a critical thinker, I don't understand that. It makes no sense to that. So here's like another example. It's like another controversial thing. Like climate change stuff. It's like perhaps I have a certain belief that is different from like a mainstream narrative sort of belief. But then people are like, oh, you are wrong about this sort of stuff. We are destroying the environment with this and that. It's like, okay, can you provide me the evidence? No evidence given. And then I'll say, hey, all of these things that they're trying to do to eliminate the, carbon emissions, like with these electric cars, do you know that, it's much more damaging to the environment with all the electricity? Like you have to have electricity to power these things. like with what you have with like California, they want to ban all sales of gas cars, and then literally the following day they're like, we're going to limit your electricity usage. It's like, okay, so you don't want people to really do anything. So it's just, people don't want to look at this sort of stuff because they don't want to, first of all, they don't want to admit that they're wrong. They don't want to admit that the world is much darker than they actually think that it is. Because there are very, very dark things. To think that there are people that are going to do you harm, like, why would companies, the news media, politicians, all kind of get together to control and manipulate doctors and make you believe certain things that are safe and effective, but then completely ignore the actual scientific evidence when it's right there in their face? It's like, why would they all collude together? It's like, that's like some paranoid conspiracy theory, right? When you actually look at the scientific evidence, it is not a conspiracy theory. You can clearly see what is going on here, but it's the blissfully ignorant people who choose not to believe anything. Or, I don't mind if you have a different belief than me, but at least look at all sorts of sides. If you're completely unwilling to look at alternative views, then you are blissfully ignorant, and you're only going to lead yourself down a dark path that will lead to your own demise. It's like, it has nothing to do with me at that point. I try to present information, like, as I said, all those YouTube comments and everything, people saying that I'm wrong about this, and they won't give any sort of evidence or facts because they have a bias. They don't have any evidence or facts to back up anything that they're saying. And when they do, actually the thing, I would say 95 to 98% of people do not even reply back when I say, do you have proof or evidence for this? Can you link it to me? Can you send it? And for the very, very, very few people that have over the years sent something, it's usually like a mainstream media news article or something. It's like, how can that be trusted? Because when you go to the mainstream media news article, it's a clickbait headline. Most people do not even read the article. And then when you read the article, there's no sources cited. So it's like, where are they getting their information from? So honestly, I think at the end of the day, you don't know what to believe anymore. Who do you trust? Who do you believe? I would say believe your own intuition. If your intuition says something is wrong here, then perhaps something is wrong. So that's just all. That's all what my thoughts are. So let me know what your thoughts are on this topic. I'm really curious to hear it. Take care. Bye-bye.